Very important. Your soulmate is so happy and needs to tell you something very important right now. Something happened last night that changed the emotional atmosphere around your soulmate in a way they could not ignore. It may have started with something small, something ordinary, something that seemed almost meaningless at first, but by the time the night became quiet, your soulmate was sitting with a feeling they had been trying to understand for much longer than you realize. And the strange part is that the feeling was not sadness this time. It was not confusion. It was not fear. It was happiness. A deep, unexpected happiness that made them stop, breathe, and finally admit something to themselves that they had been avoiding. They realized that there is someone they cannot simply erase from their heart, and that someone is you. This message is written as a spiritual, imaginative soulmate-style message for reflection and encouragement, but imagine for a moment that your soulmate had the chance to speak openly without fear, pride, hesitation, or the pressure of anyone else watching. Imagine that every wall disappeared. Imagine that they could finally say what they have been carrying quietly inside. What would they tell you? They would probably begin with the words they have struggled to say for a long time. I need you to know something very important. I am happy because I finally understand what my heart has been trying to tell me. Last night, something shifted. Maybe they remembered a conversation between you. Maybe they saw something that reminded them of you. Maybe they heard a song, passed a familiar place, looked at an old photograph, read a message, or simply found themselves alone with their thoughts. Sometimes the greatest emotional revelations do not happen during dramatic moments. They happen when the world becomes quiet enough for a person to hear their own heart, and last night, your soulmate heard theirs. They realized that the connection they tried to treat as temporary had remained. They realized that the memories they thought would disappear had become part of them. They realized that even after distractions, distance, silence, responsibilities, misunderstandings, and time, something about you still made their heart react differently. That realization brought them an unexpected sense of peace. For so long, they may have believed that moving forward meant leaving everything behind. They may have convinced themselves that they needed to become stronger, colder, more practical, or less emotional. They may have told themselves that they should stop thinking about you. They may even have tried to redirect their attention toward other parts of life. But last night, something inside them whispered a different truth. You don't have to run from what matters to you. That sentence stayed with them. They thought about how many times they had hidden what they felt. They thought about the moments when they wanted to reach out but stopped themselves. They thought about the words they almost said. They thought about the opportunities they allowed to pass because they were afraid of what might happen if they admitted the truth. And then something beautiful happened. Instead of feeling ashamed of those emotions, they became grateful for them. They realized that caring deeply for someone is not weakness. They realized that missing someone does not automatically mean losing yourself. They realized that love does not always arrive loudly. Sometimes love grows quietly in the spaces between ordinary moments. Sometimes it is the person whose name unexpectedly appears in your thoughts while you are doing something completely unrelated. Sometimes it is the memory that still makes you smile years later. Sometimes it is the person you cannot explain logically because the connection feels larger than logic. And sometimes, the most powerful realization is simply this: I still care. That is what your soulmate may be feeling in this imaginative message. They are not necessarily standing somewhere with a perfect plan. They may not have every answer. They may still be figuring out what they want and how to express it. But emotionally, something has become clearer. They do not want to keep pretending that you mean nothing to them. And that realization made them happy, not the shallow kind of happiness that disappears after a few minutes, a quieter happiness, a peaceful happiness, the kind of happiness that arrives when someone finally stops fighting against their own feelings. They may have looked at the night sky and wondered how two people can become so important to one another without even realizing when it happened. They may have thought about your smile, your voice, your energy, the little things you probably never realized they noticed. Maybe they remembered the way you looked at them during a conversation. Maybe they remembered a small kindness you showed them when you had no reason to. Maybe they remembered how comfortable silence could feel around you. Maybe they remembered a moment when they felt understood without having to explain everything. Those memories may have become precious to them, and now they are beginning to understand why. You were never simply another person passing through their life. You became part of a chapter they could not close emotionally, even when they tried to close it practically. There is something else they want you to know. They are tired of allowing fear to make every decision. Fear has a powerful voice. Fear says, wait. Fear says, don't say anything. Fear says, what if they don't feel the same? Fear says, what if you get hurt? Fear says, what if everything changes? But courage has a quieter voice. Courage says, what if this matters? Courage says, what if honesty creates healing? Courage says, what if you stop running? Last night, courage may have finally become louder than fear. That is why this moment feels different. Your soulmate may have realized that they cannot control every outcome, but they can control whether they are honest with themselves. They cannot guarantee how another person will respond. They cannot erase the past. They cannot force timing. They cannot predict tomorrow, but they can acknowledge what their heart has been telling them. And their heart has been saying your name in one form or another, not necessarily literally. Sometimes a person's name lives in memory. Sometimes it lives in emotion. Sometimes it lives in a question that keeps returning. What if? What if things had been different? What if they had spoken sooner? What if they had been less afraid? What if the timing had been better? What if the distance had never happened? What if the misunderstandings had been cleared up? What if two people who genuinely care about each other finally stopped allowing circumstances to speak louder than their hearts? Those questions may have kept your soulmate awake longer than expected. But instead of becoming overwhelmed by them, they may have reached a new understanding. They cannot live forever inside the word what if. At some point, A person has to choose what they want to do with what they have learned, and that is where their happiness comes from. They are beginning to believe that the future does not have to repeat the past. They are beginning to understand that a mistake does not have to become a permanent ending. They are beginning to see that emotional maturity means learning, not pretending nothing happened. And they want you to know that if they approach you again, they do not want to come as the same person who walked away. They want to come with greater honesty, greater clarity, greater respect, greater patience. They want to understand you rather than assume they already do. They want to listen instead of simply waiting for their turn to speak. They want to recognize the things they previously overlooked, and most importantly, they want to stop treating something meaningful as though it were disposable. There is a softness around their heart now, a softness they may have been afraid to show. They may have once believed that being emotionally vulnerable meant losing control. Now they are beginning to understand that vulnerability can also mean strength. It takes strength to say, "I was wrong." It takes strength to say, "I miss you." It takes strength to say, "You mattered more than I admitted." It takes strength to say, "I was afraid." It takes strength to say, "I still care." And it takes tremendous courage to say, "I want to try again, but this time I want to do things differently." That may be the important message they are carrying, not simply that they are happy, but that they finally understand where some of that happiness comes from. You may have become connected in their mind with a version of themselves they had almost forgotten, the version that laughed freely, the version that dreamed, the version that believed in possibility, the version that allowed themselves to feel. Maybe being connected to you reminded them that life is not only about surviving responsibilities, it is also about experiencing meaning, it is about connection, it is about laughter, it is about trust. It is about becoming better because someone inspired you to look more honestly at yourself. Your soulmate may now be realizing that this connection was never meant to be about possession. It was never supposed to be about control. It was never supposed to mean that one person completes another person. Instead, perhaps the deeper lesson is that two people can inspire one another to become more whole. That is a healthier kind of love, a love that does not demand that you abandon yourself. A love that encourages you to become more yourself, and perhaps this is why the energy around your soulmate feels lighter now. They are not desperately searching for an answer, they are beginning to accept what they feel. There is a difference. When someone is desperate, they are trying to force the future. When someone is at peace, they are willing to let truth guide the next step. Your soulmate may be moving toward that peace, and that peace has brought happiness. Imagine them waking up after a night of deep reflection and realizing they no longer feel the same heaviness. The question that once frightened them now feels strangely beautiful. What if I allow myself to believe that something good is still possible? That thought alone may have changed their entire morning. They may have smiled, they may have felt lighter, they may have caught themselves thinking about you and, instead of pushing the thought away, allowed it to remain, and perhaps they whispered to themselves, "I hope they know. I hope you know that you mattered. I hope you know that the silence was not always indifference. I hope you know that distance did not erase everything. I hope you know that I learned from what happened. I hope you know that I am not trying to live in the past. I simply don't want to pretend that the past meant nothing. That is an important distinction. Your soulmate may not want to recreate old memories. They may want to create new ones. They may want to meet the version of you that exists now, and they want you to meet the person they are becoming. That is why their happiness matters in this message. Because happiness can signal readiness. When someone is constantly trapped in fear, they struggle to move forward, but when someone finds peace within themselves, they become capable of approaching relationships with healthier intentions. Perhaps your soulmate is finally reaching that place. They may have realized that waiting for a perfect moment can become another form of avoidance. There may never be a perfect moment. There may only be an honest one, and honesty might be what they are preparing for. They may want to tell you something simple. I am glad you existed in my life. Even if nothing else happened, that truth remains. You taught them something, you changed something. You became part of their emotional history, and perhaps now they want to honor that instead of running from it. But there is an even deeper realization. They may have discovered that they do not only miss your presence, they miss who they were when they felt close to you. That version of themselves felt alive. That version felt hopeful. That version believed that someone could see through the walls. And maybe that is why your connection remained so powerful in their memory. It was not simply about romance. It was about recognition, the feeling of being seen, the feeling of being accepted, the feeling that someone could understand a part of you without requiring 1,000 explanations. That kind of connection can stay with a person, and last night, your soulmate may have finally admitted that it stayed with them. They may have thought they were completely over it. Then suddenly, a memory appeared, a laugh, a place, a sentence, a familiar feeling, and there it was again, that warmth, that strange little spark, that reminder. Not everything meaningful disappears just because time passes. Some things simply become quieter. And sometimes quiet does not mean gone. It means waiting to be understood. Your soulmate may now be understanding. They may also be recognizing something about timing. Maybe the two of you needed distance to grow. Maybe you both needed experiences that taught you what you would and would not accept. Maybe you needed to become more independent. Maybe they needed to confront their fears. Maybe life needed to rearrange priorities. Maybe circumstances were never as simple as they looked from the outside. But regardless of what happened, there is something valuable in what you learned. You became stronger. You became wiser. You learned to value yourself. And if your soulmate returns to your life in any meaningful way, they will have to meet the stronger version of you, not the version who waits endlessly, not the version who abandons personal boundaries, not the version who accepts confusion as love. They will have to meet the version of you who knows that love and self-respect can exist together. That may be exactly what they are learning too. Their happiness is not supposed to become your responsibility. Their emotional journey is theirs. Your emotional journey is yours. And if your paths cross again, the healthiest connection will be one where both people arrive with freedom, honesty, and respect. That is what makes this message hopeful rather than fearful. There is no need to chase. There is no need to force. There is no need to decode every coincidence. There is no need to become someone else. If something is meant to grow, it should be allowed to grow through real communication and mutual choice. Your soulmate may be learning that, and perhaps that is the most important thing that happened last night. They chose honesty over fantasy. They chose peace over obsession. They chose growth over repetition. They chose hope over fear. And somewhere in that decision, they realized they still care about you. That realization made them smile. Maybe they even laughed at themselves. How did I spend so much time pretending I didn't care? They may have remembered all the little ways they tried to hide their feelings, the delayed responses, the changed subjects, the unnecessary distance, the moments when they wanted to stay longer but left, the times they almost reached out and decided not to, the moments they acted indifferent while feeling something completely different, and now they may see those moments differently. They were not proof that they did not care. They were proof that they did not yet know how to handle what they felt. That does not excuse hurtful behavior, but it can explain why people sometimes act strangely when emotions become bigger than their understanding. Your soulmate may now be developing that understanding. They may be asking themselves better questions. Not how do I make this person come to me? But how can I become someone capable of giving this connection the respect it deserves? That is a much deeper question. It changes everything, because love is not only about feelings, it is also about behavior, it is about consistency, it is about communication. It is about accountability, it is about respecting another person's boundaries. It is about showing up when things are inconvenient, not only when emotions are intense. If your soulmate truly wants to tell you something important, perhaps the most meaningful message would not be a dramatic promise. It would be a simple commitment to honesty. I don't know exactly what happens next, but I don't want to hide from the truth anymore. Those words carry weight. They allow two people to speak without pretending to know the future. They create room for reality. And reality is where genuine connection has the chance to grow. Your soulmate may also be realizing that happiness is not something another person can permanently give them. That is important. They may care about you deeply, but they are responsible for building their own emotional foundation. You are not their savior. They are not yours. Neither person should carry the entire emotional world of the other. Healthy love creates partnership, not dependency. Perhaps that is the maturity your soulmate has gained, and perhaps that is why they feel so happy now. They can think about you without losing themselves. They can care about you without demanding anything. They can hope without becoming consumed by expectation. They can remember without becoming trapped in the past. That is emotional freedom, and emotional freedom can make love feel lighter. Maybe they are imagining what it would be like to speak to you again, not with a rehearsed speech, not with dramatic promises, just honestly. Maybe they would say, I don't know if you realize how many times I thought about reaching out. Then they might pause. I didn't always know what to say. Another pause. I was afraid you wouldn't understand. Then perhaps the most honest sentence, but I don't want fear to make my decisions anymore. They may tell you about the things they have learned. They may admit where they were immature. They may acknowledge moments where they could have communicated better. They may tell you that they understand your perspective more now. They may say that they wish they had listened. They may apologize, and perhaps you would have questions too. That is okay. A meaningful conversation does not require one person to have every answer. Sometimes it simply requires both people to be willing to listen. That is where healing begins, not by pretending nothing happened, but by allowing the truth to exist without fear. Maybe last night your soulmate realized that they want exactly that: truth, clarity, peace, no more guessing games, no more emotional hiding, no more pretending. They may have realized that whatever happens between you, they want it to be real, and that is a beautiful realization, because real love does not need constant mystery. It needs trust, it needs patience, it needs communication, it needs two people who can say what they feel without using manipulation. It needs the freedom to say yes, and the freedom to say no. It needs boundaries, it needs kindness, it needs responsibility. Your soulmate may now understand that, and perhaps that is the secret behind their happiness. They are no longer fighting reality. They are accepting themselves. They are accepting the past. They are accepting that you mattered, and they are accepting that the future is still unwritten. That last part is important. The future is unwritten. No message can guarantee what another person will do. No spiritual sign can replace a real conversation. No prediction can take the place of mutual choice. But hope can still be meaningful. Hope can encourage you to remain open to beautiful possibilities while continuing to live.